Finally. How are you?
Sorry, everybody.
No, it's
Hi.
fine. It's
I'm
kind
so
of
glad I
like,
figured it out.
I know. I figured it out just last week, so
This is
I'm
my first
not
live video ever.
I'm not expert, but I'm trying to um keep everybody inspired by this. Um Chelsea, could you introduce yourself in 1 minute?
Yes, I can. I'm Chelsea Volpe. I'm a New York City-based fashion, still life, and prop and set stylist. I kind of am a Swiss Army knife of stylists. Um, and that's me. Sometimes I do a little creative direction. I do it all.
Awesome. Do you remember how we met?
I think my agent set up a meeting with you to come and talk to you.
Yeah, I remember that the first meeting. You came to my office with a bunch of magazines and you say, "Hey, I'm a stylist." Like we texted before, no? And then you came to my office, and then you were so prepared, and I was just kind of like blown away by how many magazines you had with you, and you had references and kind of like ideas of projects that you wanted to work with. But then it took us a while to kind of like finally work together, right?
It did. It took us a really long time. I think it took us like a year to work together.
Yeah, yeah,
It was sad. I was
yeah.
really excited.
But we developed a friendship in the meantime, and Chelsea is one of the stylists that I work often, and she's also to my as a photographer, she has a very kind of like clean ethic in how she works, and I love how you work. I love how prepared you are and how professional, and how like you take your job very seriously, and that's amazing. So when
Yeah.
did you first get interested in clothes? Do you remember? What's your
Basically
first
since
memory of
birth.
clothes?
Um, my first memory of clothes is I feel like the minute that I picked up a fashion publication, the very minute.
Yeah,
I think that was my very first. I also always loved, like when you're younger and you go to Walmart and you get like the jelly shoes, the
yeah.
little like jelly shoes. I thought those were really cool too. I just always
Okay.
grew up loving fashion. But my real passion for clothing began when I started to get, seeing and reading publications. I mean, as you know, like Vogue,
So what
you
age were you like
know,
that? What age were you?
I mean, I've loved clothes since maybe, you know, I should send you some pictures. Maybe since I was 5 or 6. Like I really went for it with the outfits. That's for sure.
Nice. Did you go to school for any kind of like fashion related thing?
I did. I went to Iowa State University. Shout out Iowa State. Um, and I went for apparel merchandising, design, and production. And my
Uh-huh.
emphasis was in entrepreneurial studies and apparel merchandising. So, sort of the business of fashion.
Okay. That's cool. Do you think formal education is important? Like at a
I,
school?
I think that for us, creativity is kind of like in your blood to an extent. But I think that what's really important is having a business sense because there's this creative side and there's like this, you know, really important sense of self and identity in your
Yeah.
work. But I think it's also very important to know how to manage your business because
Yeah.
we're self-employed and we work for ourselves
Yeah. I've
and
been
how
saying
to
this
network and stuff.
I've been saying this a lot because every time because I've been asking this question to everybody that I kind of like go live with, and
Mhm.
I feel like often kids ask me like younger, I like to say kids, but like young people ask me like, hey, I want to be a photographer. Which school do you recommend? And I always
Yeah.
say, don't go to school for photography.
Yeah.
Like don't. I always say that. I was
It's
like,
true.
don't do for photography. Go to study something if you can pay for
Yeah.
school. Study
Mhm.
something else that can complement your photography and do photography and practice and because I do feel like if you have it, and I'm not saying that I have it, but if you have it, I feel like you can develop and educate yourself. But there's this other
Mhm.
kind of like side of like the business side of it, or the business and social that
Mhm.
nobody teach you, just
Mhm.
like getting an agent and how much to charge, how to send an email, a proposal, building a mood board, stuff like that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I always tell them like study something else that complement your photography, like fashion history or art or like business of fashion. I feel like now there's so many careers that wasn't available when I went to school
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went to school for communications and marketing because it was the closest thing to kind
Great.
of like you could get to be creative. Uh,
Exactly.
but but now, you know, the schools have amazing careers about like any
They have
fashion
styling
business.
schools.
They
They
have
have
styling
schools
school.
for
Yeah,
styling, which is
yeah,
really amazing. I agree 100% with you. I think if I could say one thing, I'd say formal education is important because of the all the other work that goes into outside of your creativity per
yeah.
se. So I think, yeah, I think it's
So you
valuable and I think you need it.
so you think you can be a good stylist even if you didn't go to school for styling?
Oh, definitely. I have a few friends that I kind of came up with assisting wise that went straight into to assisting some really amazing stylists.
That's the best
And
school.
yeah, they didn't go to school, and I mean, I think it hinders them in their ability to like potentially do something else if styling weren't to potentially not work out, but they've become amazing stylists. So,
Okay. What
yeah.
was the first job ever that you had? Not necessarily as a stylist, but like your first job, the first time that you got money for something, even
Oh,
when you were a kid.
oh,
Because I feel
so
like
I
that
I
says a
have a
lot about
couple of
a lot
stories.
of people. Yeah.
I think my dad might be watching this. So, Dad, you'll remember this. So, one of my first, I had two jobs when I was younger growing up that were really funny. Actually, I had multiple. I grew up in the Midwest, and my dad really instilled in me like the super hard work ethic.
Uh-huh.
And he worked as an accountant at this livestock like equity company. I don't even know, something business. And he had me literally folding envelopes and licking them and sealing them and help sending them out. That was one
Nice.
of the first ones. Another one is I had bargained with my parents' landlord when they had lived in an apartment in Baraboo, Wisconsin, that I could mow the lawn, but I was too small to actually like do the handheld mower. So
Yeah.
I basically had my dad mow it, and I would go pick up the sticks around my yard.
Yeah.
And I detasseled corn too, which was really fun. I actually thought that was super fun. Not gonna lie to you.
Okay. When and why did you move to New York?
So I moved to New York about a week after graduating from college. I had a contracted buying position at Ross Dress for Less, which is like an off-price retailer, and
Hmm.
I was an assistant junior dress buyer. So that's what I started in. Very business fashion. I
Okay.
hope you
And
guys
why
don't
New
mind.
York?
I'm drinking wine because
No, cheers.
Mm,
And
cheers.
cheers, babe. And why New York?
I had interned in New York, and the minute that I went to New York City, anyone who knows me from home, from the Midwest, could tell you it was just like I knew the very second that I landed in New York, the diversity, the culture, the attitude, the feeling of the city, the grittiness. Like it was just like I tell people often, like New York City is the greatest love of my life. Like I just
Perfect.
knew I had to be there.
New
Yeah,
York City is my boyfriend.
yeah.
Uh, did
Here's
you?
the best.
So you're a stylist. So did you assist somebody before starting on your own?
Oh yeah, I was kind of one of those like people joke that I was like a lifelong assistant because I had assisted for so long before I became and branched out on my own. I had assisted so many great stylists, including I had assisted Patty Wilson for a little period, Natasha Roy, who's amazing. She does a lot of Vogue Russia. I had assisted Alicia Keys, stylist, and she did a variety of other celebrity she was more of a celebrity stylist, but she had been Edward Enninful's assistant for a long time. So I had a
Nice.
lot of people that I assisted.
I
Yeah,
feel like assisting was I moved to New York in 2011, and I
yeah,
went straight to assisting. And even like getting a position for an assistant was
mm-hmm.
like hard, you know,
So hard.
and yeah, so hard. And because coming from Mexico, I thought like assisting was carry the bags or
Yeah,
move the cables and stuff like that. And even it's not like that. It's such a if you're the first one or even the second one assistant of a photographer or a stylist, it's pretty legit. You have to deal with
intensive.
like big shit. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
I assisted for a few years until I was kind of like, am I getting too old, like to still assisting? Like, but I always felt like I needed to learn more. I always, but it was kind of like that bug in me that I was like, I need to move on because I'm getting old and there's younger people doing better things than I'm doing. So, you know, and I was like, at some point, I was like, okay, there's some things that you're going to learn as an assistant and some things you're going to learn them on your own as a photographer, as a stylist, and you're going to fuck it
100%.
up and whatever.
Yeah, your
What are
first
the,
few jobs are you really do fuck them up.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. You're trying
What,
your best.
what are the kind of jobs that you usually have that, like, I want you to clarify this for people that is watching you. So what are the usually the jobs that you usually as a stylist because there's many things you can do, but what is the things that you usually get?
So I actually feel like in a way I'm really lucky because I do a great variety of styling. So as I said, I do like still life styling, prop uh prop is essentially, it can be interchangeable with still life styling. So like imagine like, oh, I'm displaying this watch or this ring, right? Like and then I do on figure menswear and women's wear. Less men's, I'd say predominantly women's. But the
Okay.
types of jobs that I get for both are, I do a lot of editorial work, which you know we've done a lot of stuff together.
Yeah,
But how I pay my bills is with commercial work.
I
So
see.
I do e-commerce work, which is basically like you go to a website, you click through, it's like, oh, buy that shirt from Amazon or Zappos, for example. And then I also do like, I'll do some campaigns, but that's all like, I mean, you know, like commercial work.
Yeah,
And then
okay,
I have my own personal editorial projects. But
perfect.
predominantly, I'd say about half, I honestly would say, well, I'd say maybe 80% commercial work and about 20% editorial work overall.
I see.
Yeah.
uh so yeah, you know, guys, the money is in the commercial stuff. No, another person supporting that idea.
Mm-hmm.
um what do you think it was, you know, your first big break, if you ever have one, which I'm sure, like
Oh,
that
yeah.
project that you always wanted, and or that thing that you were like kind of like wishing so much, and then one day came and you're like, oh, I'm amazing, like I can keep going, you know?
My first big break, well, I have to say there's a couple of big breaks. So one of my first big breaks was actually, sorry, I'm getting like text messages at the same time.
Yeah, no problem.
One of my first big breaks, I have to say, just in general to get me into styling and to go out on my own, was through a kind of, I'd say, a mentor to me. His name's Andrew Holden, and he did like Spice Girls, and he actually is at the same agency that I'm at. He's an amazing stylist,
Okay.
and he had introduced me. He did an introductory email to my agent, and for that, I can't thank him enough. I really respect him and owe him. So that was like a big break for me because I'd been an assistant for so long.
Yeah,
And I really needed that introduction, and I needed the courage to be able to do that. So that, I mean, that's not a big break for a job, but that's a big break for my life.
awesome. Yeah, of course, I
I'm gonna
agree.
shout him out.
Great
Um,
choice.
but for a job, I'm trying to think what was a really big break. There have been so many awesome projects that have happened. It's
It's just
so
like when the
hard.
times go by, you don't see them. But
I
I
know.
remember you're like you're excited for like a week or something after you get it, and then you're like,
Exactly.
I want something else. But and then if you go back, then you know you
Yeah.
wish. I remember how much I cherished like the first time I want to publish in Vogue. I want to publish in Vogue, and
Oh
then the
yeah,
first
that.
time it happened, I bought all the magazines that they were at the doing reads, you know, with the pictures.
Well,
Even
that's
though it
a
was a
huge
picture like
break.
this big,
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
Probably the Vogue Mexico. You and I did that one Vogue Mexico shoot. That was pretty cool together. That we
Okay,
did.
I need to talk about, can you talk about that in the meantime that I get that magazine?
Yeah,
Can you?
grab it. That was a pretty big one. Um, a big one commercially for me was the Bobby Brown campaign that I had done. That was pretty awesome. That was, I mean, getting a campaign when you're so young feels like really amazing. Your
Yeah,
first
okay.
campaign is like, you get really excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. So Chelsea, can you talk? You and I did this. Well, not this cover, but like
I
inside.
wish I did the cover.
Yeah, soon. So we did this.
Mhm.
What can you say about this job?
Oh my God. That, first of all, I can say that that job was a blast. Um, that was with Daniela Soto Inez. I don't say it
Yeah.
as great as you
No, it
as
is. It is.
but
Yeah.
but Raul called me up, and I don't think we had ever done a project before that.
No, I think that was the first time we were together.
You called me up, and it was like we had a really short turnaround for that job.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, I'm waiting on a pull letter. Pull letters, guys, just so anyone who doesn't know what a pull letter is it basically gives the stylist a leverage to be able to reach out to the showrooms and stuff like that to get clothing samples. So you would reach out to me and you're like, it's probably going to be like this quick thing. Maybe you just want to do a couple of looks. Of course, I brought like
yeah, I knew that we would do like 2 or 3 pictures. They published 2 pictures, and I told Chelsea, go easy on it. Like, I know it's like a last minute thing. Just go easy on it. And then Chelsea shows up with like a rack full of clothes, the most amazing clothes you can imagine.
It was like 2 racks full of clothes.
Yeah,
like
tons of
50
shoes.
pairs of shoes at least. It was
awesome. And that was the first time we were together, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this girl, even though I said this was gonna be simple, she kind of like prepared enough for the job, and that job was kind of like easy in a way because Daniela was kind of like a delight to work with, right?
A gem. She was so great, and she cooked for us. Just so you guys know, so Daniela is actually, she just got voted she got awarded best female chef in the world.
Yeah, and for 2018.
She did, yeah. She was amazing, and she was just such a light to work with. And we had a very limited amount of time before the restaurant that she is the chef for open. So we had like 2 hours?
2 hours, yeah. It's Cosme. For everybody that's in New York City, it's an amazing restaurant called Cosme on 23rd and Madison. Where do you get your inspiration from, and how do you come with all these like concepts that you do? Is it come from you? Is it come from somebody else?
I think it comes from like everything. I know a few other stylist friends and photographer friends are watching this too. And I think we can all say that, number one, people that are of a certain generation, and I think we're probably the last of it, editorials, tear sheets, references, huge inspirations. I get really inspired by art. I go to a lot of, we've been to a few events together. I just get really inspired by art and culture. I get inspired by places often. Like today I went hiking at Bear Mountain, and the whole time that I was hiking, I'm thinking, I'm not a photographer, but I'm thinking, wow, like a girl in a couture gown here. Like on a cliff,
of course. Yeah.
The light hitting her. I was like, this would be epic. But like on a rock with a Valentino gown. But,
I love those things.
It's just, I kind of get inspiration from everything, but my main inspiration would definitely be maybe places, and tear sheets, and like references are really big for me. Also, just my creative brain.
Do you think you have a particular style in the way that you work? Like in your work, do you think there's a style?
Like aesthetically?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had a couple of friends that say to me, and I'm sure you probably can tell, that if there's not a glove or a hat or an earring or a necklace, I didn't do it. Because I'm very much, I like more is more, and I like bold colors. I like a lot of print and like life and accessorizing. I think that's my aesthetic. That's probably the biggest thing about me, is like kind of like boom, color hits you. I really like that.
I've seen that people are doing questions. I'm just gonna finish mine, and then I'm gonna open for all these questions. So you think that style has changed through the years?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I first started, I was very minimal because I was afraid. So I think that my aesthetic changes with my mood sometimes. Like, I don't think that I was as confident. I think that I thought that this minimalism was more chic and that it would build my book in a certain way.
Yeah.
And then as I've grown older in my career, I feel this like sometimes I feel more romantic, or I feel in love, or I feel this way. And the way that my aesthetic changes is like, maybe like, if I'm feeling like a particular way, my aesthetic might become really feminine. Like it changes a lot with my mood. But I'd say in the beginning it was very minimal, and then I went to this like hype beast, hype bay, very streetwear oriented, a lot of more like ready to wear, like less couture. And
Yeah,
then I kind of went into this like I know that my style is more like eccentric but like very feminine. So now I've kind of like grown into that, and that's who I am.
I see.
Yeah.
Walk us through the process for you that it is when we work in like this. Like, what is the process for like doing an editorial thing?
hmm So, well, it depends on the team, but like for example, you and you'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of give me like the outline of what the magazine wants. You kind of tell me what kind of aesthetic you have in mind, and then we'll get a pull letter.
Yeah,
And then based on that, I'll go through whatever collection, like spring, summer 2020, or, whichever season on Vogue Runway.
yeah,
I'll, screenshot it. I'll have market assistants send out requests for me, or I'll also tag team and send out requests. And then we'll see what we get in from showrooms. And it's kind of
mm,
like, that's sort of one of the funnest parts, is because it's like a gamble. And I'm always
yeah,
someone who thinks no one's going to send stuff. So that's why
yeah,
I'm an over puller, right? So like,
yeah,
I'll always be like, oh, I don't think I'm going to get this Valentino dress, or I don't think Gucci's going to send this, and they always end up sending something because, after years of relationships with them, you have there's just a camaraderie between you, and like they know that you're going to do well at this or whatever. But um yeah, so then we pull it, I edit it down, I start putting looks together. We sometimes will review it, or we'll just review it in person depending on the project.
mm-hmm.
We do the shoot, and then the worst part is the wrap. So it's like returning everything to the showrooms, then it's like making sure that credits are right,
Yeah,
sending all the stuff to the PR in the showrooms. It feels kind of like, in a way, endless every project, but at the same time, it's so worth it. And when you see it in print, it's the best.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the best.
What is the difference for you of working on an editorial job and a commercial job?
I feel like editorial jobs, excuse me, are a bit more obviously creatively fulfilling oftentimes. Um, but it's not necessarily true, because fortunately, with a lot of my commercial clients, I have been lucky to have a bit more creative freedom.
Yeah,
But the thing with commercial clients is that you're constantly needing to make sure that like a certain product, or a certain brand image is being shown. So you're always
yeah,
thinking about that in the back of your head. And
yeah.
like,
Because
how can I
commercial has a
market?
purpose, and the
Yeah.
purpose is sale. You know,
Yep.
editorial it could be more like we have the clothes, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily telling you that they need to sell the
Yes.
clothes. The editorials, I guess, is more to create desire, to kind of like do a pretty picture, and you can
Yeah.
almost do whatever we want from the
Mhm.
with the magazine. So yeah, commercial has kind of like a label that says we need to sell this. So
Exactly.
you can do whatever you want if you want, but we
Yep.
make sure we sell it.
100%. Exactly what you said.
Do you still work in projects where you get little or no money for?
Oh, yes. Yes. 100%. 100%. I think that that will be something that I'll always do. Number one, because I don't have that much pride. And I think that you should always be updating your book. You should always be keeping your book. Number two, because a lot of publications don't have the money to pay out anymore.
Yeah,
And I love editorial work. I know you love editorial work. And
yeah, yeah. They have no
it's
money,
sort
but
of
for
like
me, they have
keeping
power.
the torch alight.
Yeah, yeah.
Say it again. Sorry, you broke up there.
No, no, no. The magazines might not have money, but they still have the power, and they still kind of like they're kind of like an authority. And as for us as a photographers,
Mhm.
is where a commercial client see your work, and that's when they call you to do a campaign, and that's where the money is. So
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
me, I it's great. Like I love it.
I
But so
love it
many
too.
people, you know, they move on so quick, and they stop doing
Yeah,
that because they don't feel like it's necessary, or because they don't have the patience anymore, or because they do it for so long that like they just
they're beat down, they're tired.
yeah,
I've made a vow that I'm never gonna stop doing that, no
yeah,
matter what, even if it's more limited depending on, the project. But I think that's what really builds your book. And when we're saying book, guys, it means like your portfolio, what you show to clients, what you keep for yourself of your work. And I kind of feel like it's just, there's just something also just so, it makes me feel so fulfilled because it's what I entered fashion to do.
Yeah.
So like, unfortunately, a lot of those jobs don't have, it's like being an artist, right? Like a lot of artists don't make a lot of money.
Yeah,
But
at the
then
beginning, but at the beginning,
at the beginning,
but then they
one day.
become, yeah, you know, they become kind of like, you know, like Daniel Ersham or
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff Koons or whatever it is,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Exactly.
you know, yeah. How do you deal with a difficult like client or a difficult model or a difficult photographer or like how do you deal with that? Like, what is your approach when you're kind of like in a situation?
So I mean, it's taken years of experience, and as you know, it never stops. There's always
Yeah,
going to be difficult clients. There's always going to be difficult models. Depending on the person, like a difficult model, I'll just basically ignore.
yeah,
But like a client, it's like you have to try to appease, right?
yeah,
I think the thing is making sure that your boundaries are known in a respectful way without like compromising your dignity, but also like making sure that they're happy at the end of the day,
yeah,
you know? And also it's like any job, right? You're going to have a difficult boss some days, or you're going to have a difficult project. You just kind of have to think about it in the way that this is what it is for the time being, but I know that tomorrow we'll be on a different project.
yeah, yeah.
That's at least how I feel about it. And some of the more difficult clients, um, the projects end up being some of the greatest. So I think about the end result as well.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's important.
And also like these people, you know, these clients when that they are usually kind of like difficult sometimes. They're
Mm-hmm.
under a lot of pressure, you know, they have to justify the
Exactly.
budget that they're spending
Mm-hmm.
with good images. So I
100%.
often just try to kind of like be on their shoes and you know at the beginning also I was so kind of like stubborn a little bit and kind of like you know I'm gonna make my point like seen and I'm
Yeah.
gonna my voice and yeah you need a little bit of that but I also learned that uh patience and flexibility kind of like make I always think about this. I always think about like whenever I see it, whenever I have a client that kind of like book me again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to think that this because they like my job, my
Yeah.
work. I like
Yeah.
to think that it's because they like to work with me. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that there's somebody out there, many people that is doing better job than the one that I do. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just like for somebody to say, I'm just gonna work with him again because he's so easy to work with him, because he's so nice, or because he
Yeah.
listens, you know. So I like to think that when a client comes again with me, it's because yeah, they like the work, but they enjoy working with me.
Yeah.
And that's why kind of like I try to be patient.
That's such a good point. I also feel like just observing you on set and things, you have a way with like communicating, which is also a photographer trait. I think like a really good photographer's trait is like kind of bringing the team together.
Yeah,
I think
you're
as
kind
a
of like
stylist, I'm a bit more like I'm gonna stay by my rack of clothes and
yeah,
I'm gonna organize my stuff. But you're very like charismatic and like communicative and like like in a very like almost like a producer way, but
yeah.
also as a photographer. So yeah,
Yeah, you have
you
to pretend that everything is fine, that nothing is
always,
happening, that like everything
always.
is amazing, and that you're in a good mood. It's kind of like yeah, I feel like the responsibility of like driving the boat and kind of like
Mm-hmm.
making people feel good because ultimately we all want the same thing, which is a beautiful picture or a beautiful video.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Exactly.
feel like yeah, it's the photographer's responsibility, and that's why I kind of like tend to go to work with the same people because I know that problems there I always gonna have problems on set, so but at
Mm-hmm.
least if I work with Chelsea I know that Chelsea is not gonna be one of my problems or Mayela is not gonna be one of my problems, you
Yeah,
know. So
exactly.
it's kind of like you're kind of like that's why I feel like that's why teams in fashion are so important and that's why people keep just working with the same people. It's just because there's always some shit going on that you
Yeah,
kind of like need to be prepared to kind of like okay let's see what we're gonna have to do today, you know,
exactly.
every day.
Exactly.
um, what do you do when your creativity is not flowing?
That's such a good question. Oh my God. And it happens actually, it's I've had it happen now, right now. I feel like it's flowing even more, probably because of the situation that's happening right now.
Yeah,
But when I don't feel like my creativity is flowing, I'm extremely as anyone who knows me well knows, I'm one of the most restless people, and I'm a super workaholic. And what I do is like, I have to change some equation that's going on in my life. So like, if it's me like legitimately picking up and moving to Berlin, which I have done, I will do it. Like, if it's me changing some aspect of my life in an extreme way, like I feel like I'll do it, or even in a minimal way, or maybe I'll just take time away from like, like a
The
lot of
computer.
e-commerce projects,
Yeah.
or like a lot of
Yeah.
commercial projects, and I'll say, you know what, I need a week off to like legitimately like be, and it's not like, I mean, yeah, I would love to have the money. I'd love to be getting that money coming in, but there's just something about when you feel creatively stifled or you feel like it's not coming in, it's just an emptiness. So
Yeah.
being changing some sort of equation, taking off, um, going back through archives. That's a big
Yeah.
one.
I
Like
feel like
you and I
that's a
were
lot.
talking
Like,
about that the other
yeah.
day.
I
Yeah.
usually take a walk around the block or something like that. If I don't feel like I'm like doing something productive, or if it's not happening, I'll like stop. Like I
Yeah.
learned to not force it because it's not gonna come. Like
Mm-hmm.
creativity comes when you're like in such a state of mind, and that doesn't mean that you need to be happy because
Mm-hmm.
most of my best projects, I feel like I've done it when I'm like a mess.
Yeah.
But it's just a certain mood like to get it to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch a movie sometimes, especially a movie that I go often just to kind of like see it again, just because kind of like it wakes up things in my brain. I'll I'll take a walk or I'll talk to somebody, and maybe that can help.
Yeah.
What's something that you think you're very good at your job?
I think, um, oh, that's a good question. Now I have to think for a second about that one. I think I'm very good at putting an eccentric twist on everything, like adding a little blip of myself to every project, no matter what the project, even if it's an e-commerce project. I think I'm good with that. I think I'm good at like being kind of funny and goofy on set. I don't know if you feel
Hmm.
that way.
Yeah, to keep the vibe. Yeah,
To
you're
keep the
bringing like
vibe.
some.
What do you think? You've been with me on set. What do you think I'm good at?
I think you're
Organized?
very good. Yeah, I think you're very good at like you're just easy to work with. You're just if you don't have a space, you kind of like move a table and then you make yourself a space.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no one that helps you carry your bags, you carry your bags. It's
Yeah.
you're not a how do you say, like you're not something that I need to babysit on set. Like
Okay.
you're your own thing, and I feel like again as a photographer it's great because then I know I can forget about you in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll be good and I can just figure out my lighting or
Yeah.
my or whatever is happening. Of like if the model is in a mood, then I don't need Chelsea to be in a mood. So
Yeah.
that's why I think you're very good at that. You're very I'm looking for the right word. I don't know, you're just easy to work with. You're just
Thank
easy.
you. That makes me feel really
Yeah.
good. You just made my day. Thank
What
you.
do you expect? And I'm gonna start asking the question from the guys that are here. But one of my last question is, what do you
My
expect or
sister.
what do you like
Huh?
from a photographer when you wanna work with somebody? What do you kind of like? What do you want in a photographer? Because that something is gonna make you feel is gonna make your job better.
Yeah. Um, I like collaboration
Okay.
and understanding. I think there have been photographers in the past that I've had conflict with because they presented something in a way that was a non-negotiable. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I need from you, and I need this
And that's it.
exact thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing about our jobs is that you're not ever going to do the exact thing. And also,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, is that you're not doing exactly what was prescribed. For
Yeah.
a commercial client, maybe, but
Maybe.
for an editorial, and that's not even, you never end up, it always
Yeah.
ends
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
being slightly different. And that's what's the
Yeah.
beauty of a team. But when
Yeah.
you
That's
work
what
with
it makes
someone,
like
it's not
something new.
negotiable. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like that. So I like people that want to work as a collaboration. Like, we've talked a couple of times, like, you're like, oh, I really like, we don't want these super feminine dresses, but then it's like what I end up getting, or what matches my aesthetic, sometimes ends up being a little bit more feminine, and then you
Yeah.
kind of work with it, and like that's why it's easy to work with you, and it's like a collaboration. It feels 100% like a collaboration. there are other photographers where it feels like kind of like you're being dictated as to what to do, and that's not a healthy or happy environment usually.
Yeah. Sometimes if the check is big enough, then you just do it, you know.
Yeah, the
But
check's big enough. I
but
was
if
like,
yeah,
okay,
but
I'll
if
do
you're
it.
not making any money, if you're working for the editorial, you're not making any money. I
100%.
always say this, and I probably say it so many times that it's gonna be like, oh, again. But like, what's the point of like be making a beautiful picture on set if everybody is gonna have if everybody's gonna having like a bad time? You know,
Exactly.
if when you see this picture, you only remember how stressed you were, how
Exactly.
the photographer was dick, how the model was in a mood. Like, you know, what's the point of like creating something beautiful? Then when you look at it in the future, then you're gonna be like, oh, I remember this day, like you
I
know?
hate it so much.
Yeah. You know, that's when we go back to the Daniela's photos and we see
Yeah.
them. I'm like, oh my God, I
I
remember
feel
how
nostalgic
delicious,
about it every time because I'm like, that
yeah,
was
how
like a
delicious
great
we
day.
ate, how amazing she was, how
Yeah.
energetic, you know, and that makes me happy. That makes it like, even though I didn't make much money on that, like I was like, oh, but that's good. It's a good
But
picture.
we had a great time and we made a great
Yeah,
friend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who are your heroes? People that you admire.
My parents, 100%.
Okay.
My family are great inspirations to me. They're just great people. They're very supportive. My like absolute heroes,
Any stylist that you look up to?
Patty Wilson,
You're the
obsessed.
second one saying Patty Wilson.
Yeah, I actually assisted her, and she is. There's just something about someone who's so. She has created such a great reputation for herself, and like she, it was amazing in a way to work with her because she had such a great reputation that anytime we would be pulling stuff, we'd be doing market work. Market work, by the way, guys, is like requesting things from showrooms or designers.
Kind of like the
They
dirty
would
work.
basically just give it. They would just like give it, like, and that's like an ideal. That's years and years of dedication and work and reputation building, and just she's amazing. She's a hero to me. Edward Enninful, huge hero of mine. I mean, one of the most prolific stylists in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of group of people, it was, phenomenal to me. There's so many stylists before me that are just so amazing and
Yeah.
like what they've done with their career, and I feel humbled that I ever got to assist them, or that I was even in the presence of them, because they taught me
Yeah.
so much by doing nothing, just
Yeah.
being around them. And that's how I hope to one day be,
Yeah.
hopefully.
That's awesome. I remember when I moved to New York, I assisted many photographers, but one that I always wanted to work with. And I was kind of like lucky, I guess, to kind of like be on set with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with him for 2 weeks, and I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a fourth assistant. You know, I was literally,
Yeah.
he just gave me the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I had such a bad time working for him. Like
Yeah.
he, I before meeting him in person, I looked at his work and I was like so fascinated by him. And then I met him, and then day by day, I was just like, oh my gosh,
You
like,
really didn't enjoy it.
yeah. Because at that point I had no experience with anybody else. It's kind of like everything. You're like, maybe this is it. Maybe this is how
Yeah.
it is. Maybe this is
Yeah.
as good as it can be.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks or something, I kind of like quit because I was just not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, this is my first year in New York City. I don't know anyone, but it was just so bad that I was just like, I don't think this is how it's gonna
You were
be.
like traumatized.
Yeah, a little bit. And
Yeah.
then I used to call my other assistant friends who were assisting other photographers, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just telling the situation, and they're like, no, like it's not always like that. There's different people. And then later on, I worked with one of the best photographers in the world that I love, and that we're still friends. That it's even this day. And then I learned that no, there's nice people, and there's just people that you're good with, and there's other people that not. So, but even though
Exactly.
I worked with that guy for 2 weeks, and I'm not gonna say I learned anything about lighting because I don't even remember because I was
Yeah.
just so scared on set. But I remember how I don't want to be. Like the moment I walk out from
That's
studio, I
amazing
was
because
like,
that's the
and
first
that's an
person I
amazing
worked with.
learning, and I was
Yeah.
like, once I have your experience, once I'm shooting for these magazines that you're shooting, I don't want to be like you. And that was the best kind of like thing that I learned from him. My last question, do you regret anything in your career, or would you do something different if you have the opportunity? Joshua
I would never.
Sedner is saying we need names. Uh, Joshua,
Oh,
I
Josh.
will, I will probably 5 years ago, I would probably say a name, but I'm trying to work in a
We're
more
not giving names.
peaceful role, and yeah, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, would you do something different?
I actually, I don't feel like I would do much different.
Okay.
First of all, this is the biggest. Okay, wait. Let me rephrase it. This is my dream job. I would never change my career. The idea of not having this job, to me, like, for example, during this time, it like literally breaks my heart. It's not even a job. It's just my life, and it hurts. But I feel that if I could do something differently, I would take certain things not so personally when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I would have also, to certain situations, like, for example, I stayed in a situation that was similar to what you had said for a very long period of time. And it did teach me a great deal. But at the same time, I feel like maybe I would have gone out on my own a little bit sooner. I feel like I was afraid. And even now, still, my probably one of my biggest weaknesses in my career is not having the ability. Like, I really don't reach out as much as I should. Like, I'm very much in my own like bubble of creativity. Currently, what I'm trying to work on is to be better at reaching out and putting myself out there in a way that's like to get new clients or things like that. So I'd say not taking things so personally, reaching out more and putting myself out there in a way that's like, hey, I'm available to do this. I mean, that's the beauty of having like an amazing agent, which if she's watching, I love you. But at the same time, I need to do my part in that way too. And I think I'm a little apprehensive about it, and I don't really know why. But
I feel like it's funny because I feel like as a friend, like Chelsea and I are also kind of like friends.
We're cool.
I feel like as a friend, you're always reaching out. I always get a text from you. I always get, like, even in the most random times, you're like, hey.
I bombard you with messages.
It's just there's not many people in New York City who do that. And it's weird, but one of my best feelings is when I see a text from somebody I'm not expecting a text from, and there's like, just to say hi, and I'm like, oh, nice, hi, Okay, people is asking, what is the best way, advice you can give to the freelancer photographer to work with model together with stylist? This is a great question.
Okay, so the best.
He's a photographer, I guess, or she.
Okay.
Yeah, and I cannot tell. What is the best advice you can give to the freelancer photographer to work with model and stylist?
The best advice I could say for a photographer when working with a model and a stylist?
No, I think to work. I think he or she hasn't been able to work with a model and stylist, and he or she wanted to do it. So what is kind of like the best way?
The thing that I told you that I'm not that great at, reach out.
Yeah.
There's nothing holding you back from messaging anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You already have the no.
100%. And you know what else I have to say? Your book is never, half the reason I don't reach out to certain situations or people, sorry, I'm just going to move this, is because I feel like my work could be better.
Yeah.
And your work's never going to get better if you're not reaching out.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is like networking, reaching out. Like, there's no shame in putting yourself out there. And the only hindrance is going to be yourself or your self-doubt. So I'd say reach out to people, Instagram, message them. Like, even if you don't think that your work is comparable or you don't have a great book at the time in your mind, like, you'd be surprised how many people would be like, yeah, I'd love to shoot with you.
Yeah. I feel I can respond to this in a more specific way, because I feel like that's what this question is for. So I would say make a list of 5 agencies, model agencies in New York City, right? Make a list and try to figure it out who is the booker there, or pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and ask, hey, can I talk to with the manager of the new faces? Start with that. New faces are the models who they're kind of like new to the job, so they don't have many experience. So they usually are willing to work with new photographers or photographers that have no experience whatsoever. So then reach out to them. Before doing that, find a stylist or somebody kind of like around your generation, somebody that is on the level that you are, kind of maybe a little bit higher, and be like, hey, Chelsea, hey, whatever. Let's do a project together, and then put an idea together. And once you have an idea together, just reach out to that booker and be like, hey, can I do a test with your models? Oh yeah, what is your idea? They're gonna ask, and then you send them your idea. And then if they like the idea, they might kind of like try to kind of like change it here and there just a little bit. Then they're gonna send you the model, and that's it. And I bet this is why this is why you were asking. So it's as easy as picking up the phone, saying, hey, I'm Raul, I'm a photographer. I'm doing some testing this weekend. Who are your models that are available that I can test with? And they're gonna send you a list of girls, and you pick the girl that you like, and then that's it. That's how you do it.
Yep.
So I hope this question was responded. Okay.
Yours was much more thorough. You killed
I feel like that was where
that was a photographer question. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you say social media has helped you or improve your career? Do you compare your work to other stylists? Great question.
All the time. I try, to be honest, to be more of like a hype person for other stylists. Like I don't want to try to compare my work, but I want to be like, wow, that was really inspiring to me.
Yeah, they say that you don't compare, but honestly, I do it all the time. Just because you have to know what's out there. I feel like you have to know the aesthetics, you have to know styles, and some people say, don't look to other photographers' work and just do your own thing. But I feel like a little bit you have to look over the shoulder and just be like, I need to know what everybody is doing, and
yeah,
who is doing black and white and who doesn't, and who is working with this magazine, and but that's your question. Sorry, for you.
That's fair. No, that's okay. I do feel like there's always going to be a comparison. I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword with social media, right? You're really proud of your work, but then it becomes like this flood of like, just people just throwing shit at a wall, like I hate to say it in a crude way, but it's like, you might be really proud, but then you put it on a little tiny screen and there's a million other people that have other things that they're doing that are more innovative, or they're younger and they have like a different way of doing it. I try not to compare so deeply. I try to be more like, wow, that was really inspiring to me, or I'd really like to work with them in some sort of capacity. And I also think in terms of like how it's helped my career is that there are so many people, my agent has said this multiple times, that legitimately look at your Instagram profile as if it's a portfolio.
Yeah, of course.
And they'll reach out to you. I have clients that reach out to me directly. And I think that social media has helped really, like, in terms of like the networking game, because you can see people that are all over the world and be like, oh, I'm going to go to London next week and I can look at this photographer. Or
I was so against of that at the beginning, because I was like, why do I have to make my Instagram like my portfolio when I have a website that is pretty good and up to date?
Yeah.
And why am I gonna have to quit on posting my burger on Sunday just because of that? And it was a kind of like a year-long like conversation with myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna if it's what the world is doing, I might need to do it. If I want to get jobs, I might need to get it. So I try to kind of like balance it out. But yeah, social media is great. It kind of like let you put your work out there, and it costs you nothing to kind of like for people to see your work. So.
And globally, like globally.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Don't mind me.
Okay. Jorgito Campos, as a stylist and photographer, how do you deal when a client micromanaging your style? That's amazing too.
That's such a good question. It happens and it sucks. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
It sucks so bad. I tried to like realize that it will pass.
Yeah.
And also at the end of the day, you can say, oh yeah, sure. But your identity will always show through if you really are confident in your styling and your abilities. And you kind of just have to be like, you're really good at this, like navigating it and just kind of appeasing, but you'll always kind of have your little like light shine through, I feel like, in a way.
Yeah. I always feel like when a client books you, is because they like something about you, you know, about your work,
Yep.
and they're looking for that kind of like aesthetic. And
Yep.
maybe on set they've been so kind of like pushy. They've been like, okay, we need the crop to be this close, or do we need the model to put the hand like this, or do we need the light to be like that? So
Yeah.
it's fair to kind of like listen to them because they're paying you. But it's
100%.
also kind of like try to do your own thing, and try to kind of like make them understand that that you're trying to do it, and show them. I always feel like when somebody's trying to micromanage me, it's because when they haven't seen anything. And then as soon as I take the first picture and I'm ready for it and I show them, I'm like, I go to the makeup chair, I'm like, is this what you were looking for? And they're like, nice.
Yep.
Because they haven't seen anything. So before you show them that picture with the lighting and the test and the models right there, they have no idea how the day is gonna go. So I feel like talk to them, show them, be talking to them. Saying yes works a lot.
Yeah,
Be
yes is a
patient.
good word. Always
If
say
it's
yes. Don't say no.
if it's a job that you care so much about, like if it's a job that you really need the picture, that you're like, this is gonna be amazing, then just try to push as much as you can to do what you want. And you know, but by being polite and whatever. If it's a job that you're mainly there for the money and you're never gonna post those pictures, then say yes and do it.
Weigh your pros and cons.
That's probably the worst advice, but it's how I deal with it. If I have no interest in owning that job, at least I'm just gonna have a good time and I'm just gonna make the client happy, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, sure, I can do that. You know, you have to kind of like learn to identify to pick your battles. That's
Exactly.
the right word.
Well played. Pick your battles.
Okay. Okay, Tevin Consiglio.
Oh, Tevin.
What?
Tevin is one of my amazing assistants. Thanks
Amazing.
for
Hey,
writing,
Tevin.
Tev.
I think I met Tevin.
You've met
at one
Tevin.
of the jobs.
You've met Tevin.
Yeah. What's your best advice for funding agency representation? Amazing question. For founding, I guess. I guess you would say founding. Like to look for an agent.
Like to initiate an agency representation.
Yeah. And this is the question. Like going to my point, in school, they don't teach you that. And it's such a thing that you need, but they don't teach you how to look for an agent. You have to kind of like figure it out. So
yeah.
What's the best advice?
I think one of the big things is initially, prior to reaching out, making sure that your book have several people that you trust, not just necessarily a lot of people, but several people that you might trust, give you different perspectives on where your book's at, and how you can better improve it, or if you're ready to be reaching out to the specific agencies at hand. And then I think going in for a meeting after your book's all put together, after it's been reviewed, after people have given you feedback that you trust, by the way, because there are a lot of people who'll give you feedback that they're going to give you feedback and it might not necessarily be beneficial, right? Because they might not get your aesthetic, yada, yada, yada. But after you've got your book in order, I think the big thing is, setting up meetings, going in and just having an initial meeting and being like, hey, I really like the work of your artist. I'd like to show you my book, and then set up a meeting.
That should be your question. Don't go there thinking that they're gonna represent you, because nobody wants to represent you.
Exactly.
But but nobody's gonna deny you 20 minutes or 10 minutes of your time and be like, hey, I always say, make spreadsheet of the agency that you're willing to look for, somebody who kind of like represents your aesthetic, as Chelsea say, and then be like, hi, Raul, whatever the name is. I'm a fashion photographer based in New York City. Do you have 10 minutes to show you my work? And if they don't respond to in the week, send them another follow-up on the weekend. Hi, follow up on this. I'm as pushy as I can be, persistent. And then you're gonna learn from them. And then you have meetings. Then some people is gonna say something about your work, and some other people's gonna say something. And then with that, you kind of like manage it out. You can kind of like remove that picture that you love, but then an agent told you that it was an awful picture and stuff like, or somebody that is gonna tell you need to shoot more close-ups, you need to have more black and white, you need to have less nudes, that's too much, that's too porn, stuff like that. And then in that time, somebody's gonna pick you up. Like hopefully someone's gonna pick you up and be like, I can do something with you, and then you keep learning. But I feel like that's the best process.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Okay, there's a question here that I love.
Okay.
And say If you could bring, we just have one more question, Chelsea. If you
Yeah,
could bring back a fashion era, which one would you bring back for you, Chelsea? I guess.
that's so hard because I love to mix eras. Probably like the 1920s.
Oh, really? That far?
A fashion era? Okay. Let me
I
think.
guess it's for you for styling. I guess he meant for styling.
For styling, oh, if you're talking about an era like for us in editorial work, I would say probably like the 90s. The 90s
Okay.
was phenomenal. Like Gianni Versace, like Gautier, like the whole shebang, like yes. Like I would bring back the 90s. The 90s was phenomenal in terms of editorial. But in terms of like an era of fashion aesthetic, I would say probably more like 1950s. See, yep, I thought she will say 1950s. 1950s and 1920s are both very big for me. That whole like little era between the 1920s and
Awesome.
1950s, love it.
Quickly, if it's for a photography, I will bring back the 2000, like when the models were really pale, and like when fashion was a little bit more produced. The shoots were kind of like over the top, and
Yeah.
there were like so many props, and
People had
and you
budgets.
yeah, lots, yeah. So I will bring that because this is when I kind of like started to look at fashion photos in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, the best era of like Steven Meisel and Dolce
Oh my
Gabbana,
God.
Steven Meisel and Prada,
Phenomenal.
um, Steven Meisel and Armani, kind of like those kind of like high end pictures. Yeah,
100%.